Hi, I'm Andy, aka Googleman, and this is part 2 of my look at Google Keep.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Es el hombre de Google.
Hi guys, welcome back to aka Googleman. If you haven't done so already, can you please click the subscribe button down below so you'll get told when my new videos go live. Now last time we started taking a look at Google Keep and we looked at how to create notes in that app, whether you are doing it actually from within Google Keep or indeed from Gmail. What we're going to be looking at today is how to organize those notes, because as you add more and more, your Google Keep homepage will become so unbelievably cluttered that you won't know what to do with it. So let's see the different ways that we can make these notes work for us. If that sounds like something interesting to you, let's jump in.
Okay, so here we are in my Google Keep homepage. Now, as you can see, I've got a few notes in here. Some of them are actually real notes that I use as I go through, and some are just ones that I've made for the purposes of this video. Now, as you can see, I've not got a huge number here. You can see half a dozen. If I scroll down, there are a couple more down here. But on my normal Google Keep, there are probably hundreds of notes on there right now. And if I were just going to use this note page, it becomes so unwieldy so quickly. So I have two basic ways that I use to organize my notes, and I use them in tandem with each other, and that is pins and labels. I'm going to talk to you about labels first. So over on the left-hand side here, I've got reminders, which is something I will talk about later in the video creation and lesson planning. Now, the video creation and lesson planning are the two main ones I want to focus on in here. If I click in my video creation, what you can see is I've got a couple of notes that are in here, Google Keep Part 2 and Part 3. So these are the processes that I'm going through to do with this video and my next. I talked about ticking things off in those lists, and we can do that as we go along, but I'm not going to demonstrate that now. The key thing with the two notes at the top here is they are both pinned there. Okay, I mentioned pinning in my last video, but they are there so that I can have quick access to those. Particularly in this particular label, I'll only have a couple of these lists on the go at any one time. Okay, if I scroll down a little bit, what you'll be able to see is that Google Keep Part 1 is there with everything ticked off of its list, and the key point is that it is unpinned, okay, and therefore it stays in that label, but it is taken off the top part of that list. So it means that I can still access it, I can still create duplicates of it if I want to and things like that, but it is not in the way. Obviously, speaking of duplication, I will cover this one very quickly, because I don't think I said it last time, is that you can duplicate and make a copy of any note that you make. Now, obviously, if you're doing something where you have to repeat a process, so in my world, obviously, that I'm doing a lot of video production at the moment, there's lots of things that I need to be reminded to do as I go along so I don't miss out any steps. And these are the same every time with very little variation. So what I can do with that is all of these started off life as a list. If I go to the three dots more menu here, I can make a copy of that note, okay, which is exactly what I've done. And what it does, it doesn't default at pinning, it defaults as unpinned. So I have to scroll down and find the new one that I've made. Now, in this case, it's this one. If I was going to do that, I would then pin that to the top and rename it something. So when I go and do next Monday's video, that will be a new list of its own with a new title and things, but using the same basic steps as we go along. And that's a really simple thing to do. And I do that all the time. So I use this great combination of labels and pins. What you can also do is you can actually change the color of the notes as well. Now, you could do this just on your Keep homepage if you wanted to. Obviously, depending on how many notes you've got, it might start to become a bit more pinned. And again, it will depend on what you use Keep for. Because the other thing that I use Keep for is to help with my lesson planning, which is why I have this tab here. Now, obviously, this is just a mock label, but in here you can see I have got notes in blue and I have notes in red. Now, the notes in blue at the top are the things that are happening this week. These are the days this week, and these are pinned to the top. But what I've also done is I've got 2 Wednesdays. Now, the Wednesday at the bottom in red was last week's work. So when I've planned it, obviously I don't actually just put on DVDs before I get any comments about that. I don't do that. But what it does is I can see at a glance, without having to find the page in a book or a planner. I don't particularly like planners, to be honest with you. I used to, I don't anymore. And I can see what I did in that lesson. If anyone was absent, I'll make a note of it there. If I had to deal with any behavior, positive or negative, I will put that in there. It's a nice little set of reminders for me. Perhaps if I've forgotten to put my positive points on the system, it gives me a bit of a reminder to do that there as well. So I can look at that. It helps inform that next Wednesday. So after the Monday, at the end of that lesson, I will unpin that note, okay? And it will go to the bottom. Once I'm done with that, I will also change it to red to remind me that it is a day that has passed. The next step that I would do with this is once you've used one of your red notes, or certainly what I do is once I've used one of my red notes to plan my next day, so let's pretend that I've planned this new Wednesday, I'm then going to move this old Wednesday label out of here, okay? So this old Wednesday is going to go into a new label. It's going to go out of the way. Now, normally I'd have this label already created, but if you're starting fresh, you might not. So if you go to your 3 dots more on that particular note, you can go to change labels. Now you can just move it. You can check and uncheck the labels you want to go to. If not, what you can do is just create a new one. I'm going to call this last week. Okay. Normally I'd call it something, I'd go by term or half term, and they'd be categorized that way rather than by entire weeks. Otherwise you're going to have the same problem with the number of labels you've got as you have with the number of notes. But I create that label and then it automatically checks it, and then I can uncheck it from the lesson planning. I just click in the middle of that, and as you can see, it's disappeared there, and a new label called last week has appeared on the left-hand side, which I can just click and see. There's Wednesday. Okay. Now, normally, of course, I would put more detail into these. There would be dates, there would be lessons and things like that in there, individual people and perhaps some names. Okay, but this is just a really helpful way for me to keep track of what is happening in there and put it into Google Keep for easy, quick access and viewing. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about here is the use of reminders with Google Calendar. Now, we talked in previous videos about the idea that we can put tasks into the calendar so we can organize those. And we can do the same thing with Google Keep, and we can set a reminder that will appear in our calendar. So the example I'm going to use here is actually going to be for Thursday's video. Because obviously, even though the video will come to you at 3:30, I'm going to check and schedule that beforehand. And I want to be able to make sure that everything is fine. And I need to remind myself to do that. So what I'm going to do is use Google Keep and Google Calendar together to set a reminder for myself for 6 p.m. on Wednesday evening. So if I come over to Google Keep Part 3, which is what you will see on Thursday afternoon, I come down to the bottom left and I've got the Remind Me icon here, a little bell icon. I click on that, and to begin with, it gives me a set of standard possibilities later on this evening or tomorrow morning, or indeed a set time next week. Normally at the start of the week, it kind of sets it for 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. I don't want those times. I'm going to select my own date and time. So I come down to select date and time. I'm going to select Wednesday, and I'm going to set a time of the evening. Now, these times you can change in the settings menu up in the top. If you go to the settings cog, you can change those. Okay, it's quite easy to find, and it'll be fine. And the default time of 6 p.m. is absolutely fine for me in this case. If it wasn't, I could choose a customized time, but I'm going to go with that. I could choose to repeat if it's a task that I know I'm going to come back to. It is, but I'll be using a different note for it each time. So I'm not going to repeat here. Click on save, and as you can see, it's put that reminder there, so I've got it in the note that says that it is happening. Now what I need to do is link this to my calendar. So if I come over to my Google Calendar, you will see it's currently empty. What you'll also see on the left-hand side here is a reminders right next to tasks, which hopefully you'll remember from a couple of videos ago. Now, by now, of course, you may hopefully have your school timetable, your meetings, your availability time. So you need to double check that that reminder that you set for yourself does not get in the way of something else. So you can just check the reminders calendar over here. Now, chances are that you might need to refresh your calendar page, okay? If you've already got your calendar open like I did, okay, it will need a refresh. Now, how you do that's up to you. You know, there's various shortcuts on there. I'm just going to click the refresh button at the top here. And there we are, we've reloaded. Things are starting to come back up. Now it needs a moment just to get itself loaded back up again and link itself to its reminders. Now it said that they could not be loaded, but if I click on reminders here to reselect the calendar, there it is, Google Keep Part 3. And what this does is if I click into that, you can actually see here it's created it as an event. Okay, I can mark things as done, but more importantly, view related note in Keep. So if I want to make sure that everything has been done, I click this. And here we are. It has taken me to that note in Google Keep, and I can go through and check my checklist to make sure everything that I want to be done is done. If it's not, I can do those things on the Wednesday evening. If they are done, it's ready to schedule and I can sort that out.
Right, so that just about covers it for organising your notes in Google Keep, and I really hope you found things in there that you will be able to take away and use in your own practice. On Thursday, we'll be taking a look at the final part of Google Keep, and that is collaborating and sharing using those notes. When you're involved in big projects and things like that. So I hopefully will see you then. Make sure you click subscribe so that you know when that video comes up. Until then, stay safe, stay well, Googleman out.